My fiancé was recommended/given a training assignment some months back for a vacancy that would be opening, and he showed me a review at the end that he received where he received great remarks. However, to his surprise, he wasn't given the position, and he was the only person training for it. He's been feeling down the past couple of days, but he also told me something that I didn't know. A few weeks back, he was given an award in a meeting that he returned to his boss, same boss who recommended him for the vacancy, because he doesn't like awards, and he never told me about it either. He also told his boss he didn't appreciate being blindsided, and he admitted he was emotionally stressed from the meeting when he talked to him the same day. He also told him to never give him an award again, and he thinks that that's the reason he didn't get the promotion. When I asked why he didn't tell me about it, he said that work was his space and that it didn't concern me, and that honestly hurt. He also said he's thinking about leaving the company, and he's been there since he interned in college. My mom said to suggest that he talk to a professional about why he was bothered by the award/our relationship, but Dad said I should reconsider because he created a fan to walk into that hurt his career. I want to see if he'll talk to a professional before reconsidering, but Dad said I shouldn't even give him a chance. I believe I'm making the right decision by seeing if he's open to it, not just for job stuff but also for our relationship, but I want to ask if I'm going about it correctly. Me back with great remarks, albeit nothing about returning the reward that had nothing to do with it. He said that he viewed work awards similar to participation trophies that he wanted no part of. But when I asked if his reward was that, he said it was a certificate recognizing him for his work along with training/assisting others when his boss asked him to sometimes, mostly on computer when someone didn't know how to do something, so he'd show them over Microsoft Teams. He specifically said it wasn't a participation award, but that he viewed all rewards the same. He also said it'd make it awkward when he helped people in the future because awards make people seem less genuine and that returning it showed he was down to earth. When I asked why he couldn't just accept the reward and do whatever he wanted with it at home, he said it was a gesture to show he wasn't a management suck-up and that he'd be the same person after getting promoted. He also said he saw someone lose friends at work after crossing over to management's side because it was an us versus them mentality, and he compared his gesture to the person who rejected the Nobel Peace Prize that he heard referenced in Captain America, the Winter Soldier. However, he knew nothing about it besides the reference because he loves Marvel movies and didn't even know the guy's name. But when I asked if he regretted it since everything seemed to go well with his training before the issue he likely made for himself, he said he was considering suing the company because he was treated unfairly, and he wasn't open to therapy because he did nothing wrong. When I told him that it hurt when he said that his work life didn't concern me, he said there were many things he said at work that I wouldn't approve of, but that it was his space just like managers who talk behind coworkers' backs. But when I reminded him that we were engaged and incomparable to a coworker/manager relationship, he said I wasn't supporting him and didn't want couples counseling either, and that's pretty much how it went. The reason I spoke to my parents before we talked was because of an idea he floated in my first post that I didn't mention, and I want to explain it because some said I threw him under the bus to my parents, so I'll explain why. He said he was considering working a retail job in the meantime after quitting because he thinks he hit a dead end, and he said he'd be more respected there too. The other reason I told my parents was because we were looking at a home to buy, but those plans have changed and he wants to stay in our apartment, and that was before he mentioned anything about suing the company. He said he didn't mind making less if it meant having more respect, and I was willing to try and work things out if he considered therapy or couples counseling. But now that he's refused and doubled down, I told him that I'm reconsidering, and he didn't like that and said I wasn't on his side like his boss, same boss who recommended him for the vacancy and gave him the award, and has been distant since. He slept by himself on the couch and even ate dinner on his own the past few nights, and I'm trying to see if my parents can let me bring some stuff to their place come Friday. I feel like he threw everything away for no reason, got a great review on his training and made an issue out of nothing when there was none. Learning about everything he kept from me still hurts, and I might try to talk to someone myself. But it really hurts because he basically said I never knew him at work, and maybe that's just how he is when he's not with me. He also said it was something selfless Captain America would do. He said he wants to sue because he was wrongfully removed from consideration for the position for personally not liking awards despite a great written review on his training assignment, and that it would help fellow employees who felt pressured to take management awards to move up because he believes that all awards are participation trophies as a result of trying to talk to him and see if he'd be interested in couples therapy. He refused to think that he did anything wrong and still plans to sue, and I based my reconsidering of the relationship on his willingness to get counseling. I will be trying to move everything to my parents on Friday, but he's been treating me as if I don't exist because he knows that I'm done. He's eaten dinner alone, slept alone, and barely says a word to me anymore because I'm attacking him like his boss, so I'm just trying to get to Friday, but it's been hard because he's turned on me update too. I'm currently at my parents', and my ex-fiancé was pestering me to move everything to their home before Friday when I eventually did, and it was really stressful. However, he did something that I didn't expect before I moved on Friday that I'm still dealing with, and a lot of friends and family know about it now because of what he did, before I got around to telling them. He made a Facebook post that was pretty long, and he posted it to Twitter too. Long story short, he addressed the coworkers about what happened with his promotion and said that many of them were likely wondering what had happened and that he wanted to explain his side before the wrong people did. He wrote that his bosses wrongfully rescinded the promotion because he told his boss that he didn't like awards, and he included the manager's name. He wrote about his conversation with his boss and how he respectfully spoke to him in his office instead of refusing the award at the meeting because he wanted to show respect. He also said that his manager previously knew about his anxiety surrounding awards and chose to give it to him anyway when he knew it would hurt his focus, but he never once mentioned anything about anxiety to me. He never mentioned anxiety in the past, and he never mentioned that he spoke to his boss about anxiety too. He also left out what he told me about how he was emotional when he spoke to his boss and said some things he probably shouldn't have. He left out the part about being blindsided by the award and don't ever give me any awards again, and my dad thinks he's lying about having talked to his boss about anxiety to look like a martyr. He thinks he made it up to draw pity, and the rest of his post made him think that too when he wrote about how he was going to sue the company. He said he was doing it for others who may feel pressured to take awards in order to move up and that he was fighting for them. He said it was unfair of his boss to refuse him for mental health reasons he knew beforehand, and he wanted to pave the way for others with mental health challenges. He also said he was inspired by NBA player Kyrie Irving. He's also a basketball fan, who refused to get vaccinated and sacrificed salary/backlash. The Brooklyn Nets didn't allow him to play for many games due to being unvaccinated, to be a voice for the voiceless for other people who didn't want to be vaccinated. And while he disagreed with Kyrie's stance on vaccinations, we are both vaccinated, he admired how he fought and forced the Brooklyn Nets to play him and cave as they struggled in the standings/injuries and showed that corporations would eventually cave to employees like Kyrie. My ex-fiancé said he wanted to be a voice for the voiceless who felt pressured to accept awards to move up at his job. He also said he wanted to make management cave to him, and that was the reason he was suing for the employees. He also wrote that I had broken up with him because I didn't support his mental health condition just like his boss, but he never once mentioned anything related to mental health to me ever. Heck, he left out all the details about how he told his boss off, and my dad said he might be making it up to create a case when he knows he has won or just wants to smear the company. Dad has also begun calling him the fake Captain America from Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and he showed me some clips about the TV show when I asked what he meant going back to my ex-fiancé. He also wrote he was glad to find out I didn't support mental health before we had kids, which really surprised me because I suggested couples counseling together, but he told me he didn't need it because he did nothing wrong. He also wrote that I refused to have sex/sleep together after he opened up about his anxiety when he was the one who opted to sleep away from me on the couch after he accused me of not supporting him like his boss. He also said he was talking to someone he knew who was a union shop steward for advice, and he said there'd be more in the future too. A lot of friends and relatives called me and my parents in the aftermath of his post, mostly those who saw the Facebook one I was tagged in, and my parents and I have been telling them our side. I also received DMs from people telling me off for not supporting his mental health who I'm guessing are his friends, and some of them were really vulgar too. That only happened on my Instagram, and I've blocked a lot of them since because I didn't know them. But it's been stressful after he tagged me in his post, and I'm honestly tired of repeating myself to everyone. However, I don't believe in engaging him/drama on social media, so I've continued to explain to everyone who's reached out with the help of my parents. The other thing that sucks is how he called my job after I moved out and told them that I said a lot of ableist things about him about his mental conditions, which wasn't true. And while I don't think it'll amount to anything, I had to speak with HR about it, which surprised me. Dad doesn't think anything will come from it either, but he's been livid, and I am honestly too. Dad has also suggested a lawyer after how he called my job, and it's something they're investigating for maybe defamation. Don't know if that's the proper term, but maybe something in the ballpark of what he's doing. I just hope he stops, but he doesn't seem to be from his post and calling my job, and he said that there'd be more to come too. I just hope he stops with me at the least because I could care less if he wants to sue on his own, but we will see what Dad and I come up with on a lawyer. I also saw some confusing about when my ex-fiancé returned the award, and many asked if he returned it during the meeting to make a statement to his coworkers. He returned it after the meeting and after spending time at his desk where he said he was uneasy, and that led him to go to his manager's office where he told him to never give him an award again. In regards to how he showed his coworkers he wasn't a suck-up, he said he told them in passing in the days after he returned it to his boss. The award had nothing to do with the promotion he was training for, and wasn't a certificate needed for it. The award was given for how he helped others on Microsoft Teams through screen sharing when his boss asked him to assist others many times, and it wasn't related to his training assignment update 3. I've surpassed the amount of updates I can have on some subreddits. My dad was able to get in touch with a lawyer, and he agreed with the suggestion that many gave to send a cease and desist letter to my ex, we'll call him Nate, specifically for contacting my job along with posting/tagging me on his social media rants. We are considering other action too, but I wanted to touch on that because many suggested it. Things have also quieted down at my job since HR called me in to talk about how Nate called them, and we had another meeting too. Long story short, I gave them the full picture, and they agreed that he was being vindictive. I also showed them the social media rant he made, and that cemented just how delusional he was. However, Dad suggested something else too. He suggested that I call my ex's company to see if I could speak to someone there, and I was able to speak with Nate's manager after explaining who I was to someone else. He ended up calling me back on the same day, and I told him that I just wanted to ask about a few things. I told him, we'll call him John, about how Nate had become my ex after his Facebook rant, and he said he saw it too from an employee who showed him. I also told him about how he contacted my job too when I asked about the promotion that Nate was training for. He confirmed it was real and that Nate was the only candidate, and he opened up about his decision to recommend him. He said he saw potential in Nate since he started working there in college as an intern, and he called him a hard worker too. He was younger then, but he tried to support him. He gave him extra work that resulted in more hours when he wanted more in his early days, and he also helped him become full-time too. He said he was smart, honors in high school and college, and it showed at work too. He also said Nate used to be humble and appreciative, but that he let it get to his head somewhere along the way. His annual reviews were among the best, and he recommended him for the vacancy that was opening up because he thought he'd do well. He called him into the office and told him that he wanted to offer him training for the vacancy, and it would have come with a nice raise too. They wanted to hire within, and he wanted to reward him for his hard work. There was no applying for the vacancy at all. He asked if he was interested, and he said that he was, and he began training shortly after. The training lasted a few months, but he said he aced it. When I told him that he showed me the review of his training, he said it was true and that he did well. But when it came to the award, he got too buddy-buddy with how he talked to him, and he told me some things that I didn't know. My ex told me that the award was for helping people through Microsoft Teams through screen sharing, but he received it for more than just that. He would stay late to help people with assignments that were not his responsibility, and he helped someone meet a deadline by staying late when it would have been late otherwise. In regards to the award, he received a certificate along with PTO during a meeting, and John said he shyly accepted it. However, sometime after the meeting on that same day, Nate went to his office and was unlike himself. But when John asked if something was wrong, Nate went off the rails and looked stressed. When I asked if Nate told him to never give him an award again, he confirmed that he did, along with the blindsiding comment. He also raised his voice and used some profanity. And when John tried to calm him down, he wouldn't have it. He stormed out of the office and left the award there. But when his boss tried to find him a few minutes later, he found that he had left almost an hour earlier than he should have clocked out. He tried to call him to see if he was alright, but he didn't answer 2 consecutive calls, and I had no clue about him leaving early. When he came in the next day, his boss went to his cubicle and asked if everything was alright. But when he asked if they could talk in his office, Nate refused and said there was nothing to talk about. But when John said he wanted to make sure he was fine, he cursed at him from his cubicle, and others heard it too. So while his training review came back sensational, John said that effectively ended his chances for the promotion because he was done with him. He tried to be reasonable and gave him a chance to explain himself instead of getting on him for leaving early, but he spat in his face. He didn't tell HR about how he returned the award the day before because he wanted to give him a chance and felt that he might have triggered some trauma. But when he cursed at him the following day, that was it. He told his manager/HR everything that happened and said he was wrong about him and wasn't mature enough, and he said it hurt because he put himself out on a limb to recommend him when other managers wanted to hire someone older. Throughout our conversation, he kept saying that he was a good kid and that he saw himself in him. But the more he thought about it, he said he might have a silver spoon growing up because he never learned how to be personable during stress, which was essential for management. To his last point, my dad agreed with his assumption of Nate. Honor society in high school/college along with the dean's list too. His parents didn't require him to work when he worked retail. He wanted to work because his friends were going to work there. As long as his grades were good, his parents paid for gas, brought him a car, never requested for him to work, and paid for college too. I paid for my own college and took semesters off because I couldn't always afford it with fluctuating hours. But when people asked how I didn't see this side of him, he was always nice when things were going well, and his boss said so too. Giving him the award triggered something, and he wasn't mature enough to have a conversation about it. Nate would often surprise me with flowers/other gifts, and we'd watch movies/have fun. But when he became stressed with the award, his immaturity showed when he accused me of taking his manager's side and began to treat me differently. My dad said that everything at work had gone right for him leading up to the award, but that moment probably triggered something and showed he wasn't reliable when shit hit the fan because it was everyone else's fault. He also didn't blame me for not seeing it sooner because he was probably spoiled and protected by his parents at every turn. He also said that John didn't see it either after working with Nate for almost 5 years until getting triggered. I still blame myself for not seeing it sooner, but it was the first time I've seen him really bothered by something that wasn't even bad. The award was a good thing, but it is what it is. He made another post talking about a live stream he was going to do alongside a shop steward, but I won't address it in this update because it's getting too long. We're working on the cease and desist letter, and that is the first step right now. I appreciate everyone who reached out. Now on to second story. In-laws demanded a warmer invitation, so I let chat craft an over-the-top message. Now they're ignoring me completely. I sent my in-laws an invitation for dinner. We stupidly thought it would be nice if it came from me. Religious greetings / husband / was thinking of inviting you next weekend, God willing. Would that work for you or do you have other plans? 10 minutes later, Phil called my husband to tell him they wished the message had been longer and warmer. Husband agreed to let me know for next time. The next day, Phil called again over something else. Husband used the opportunity to point out they still hadn't replied to my message. Phil told him they would not be replying to me until I fixed it and made it warmer. They also pointed out that at my job, I have to adopt a certain tone to be perceived as professional. This is the same in a family context. Since they wanted me to adopt the same strategies I use at work, I figured I'd use ChatGPT to get frustrating tasks out of the way as quickly as possible. I showed the AI my original message, told it my in-laws' complaints and told it to rewrite it super warmly as if I were the perfect, insert ethnicity / daughter-in-law. It came up with an absolutely ridiculous message with emojis everywhere. I copied pasted and sent right after my left on read, invitation. Husband sent it with me and is okay with it. I first suggested to him I could write a genuine message about my grievances here, but he pointed out I did so over another petty complaint months ago and it led nowhere. We decided to go with the ChatGPT message minus some of the emojis. Phil works with AI. I have no doubt he can tell this is ChatGPT. Even Mill will know there is no way either husband or I wrote this. I do kinda feel a bit guilty about the passive aggressiveness of our response. There's a very obvious cultural context here. I understand my culture seems cold to them the way theirs seems over the top to me. But as God is my witness, I have unsuccessfully tried everything else to communicate with them. They have ignored the new message. No phone call to husband. I don't want this to go nuclear, I just want them to say sure, see you next week and pretend to tolerate my cooking. Ida? Update 1. I was here a couple weeks ago because my in-laws did not find my dinner invitation warm enough. TLDR, they refused to reply to me until I wrote a warmer invitation. I thought that was stupid so I sent back an AI-generated version filled with emojis and obvious AI lines. Mill did reply to my second message. Religious greetings / thank you for the invitation, we will get together soon, God willing. I did not follow up and let the invitation expire. They did not come. A bit after that, we had a large family gathering at their place. My husband's grandparents, his parents, their kids and grandkids. I kept the interaction with Phil and Mill to a minimum. I was polite, I greeted them, but nothing more. I felt I had made enough efforts trying to connect with people that did not respect me enough to reply to a text message. In the past, they have always used my lack of relationships with the rest of the family against me. I was not close enough to Sil or I did not spend enough time with Camille and it was proof I was not making any effort to integrate into the family. I have tried to explain their family is very large and it takes a while to build a relationship with tens of people who are already close-knit, but you might as well try and convince a mountain to move to a different spot. Well, not this time. The younger kids have always been easy. They're not as set in their ways and they accepted me very quickly. I spent hours with kids playing all over me. The babies used to cry when they saw me, they hate strangers. Not only have they stopped crying, they smile and play with me now. My oldest Sil also married outside of their culture, so she's always been the most empathetic since she knows what her husband went through with them. My other Sil is a lot more like Mill. Hard one to win over. But even she's softened and we are now in a place where we get along. The final blow though were my husband's grandparents, Phil's parents. They are very conservative and would have clearly preferred if he had married within the community. The grandmother barely speaks a word of English. I'm not what they wanted. But even they have moved on. They hugged me and they were clearly happy to see me. Between the fact I now feel comfortable with everyone else and the fact I stopped even trying with them, I guess it dawned on them that my problem was not their family, it was them. It might seem like a small thing to the readers here, but such a level of actual awareness coming from them is nothing less than a miracle of God in my eyes. After the gathering, they called husband again and asked him if I hated them and still held a grudge for the fact they opposed us getting married for a very long time. Husband in his infinite patience argued for hours with them and tried to explain that when you treat people unkindly, they do not tend to love you back. He pushed back on the idea I was punishing them and reminded them I have tried very hard for months to get along with them and all I got for it was criticism and ghosting. Whatever else was said during that fight, it seems to have had some sort of effect. They have stopped calling husband once a week to give a detailed report of everything I have done wrong during the last 7 days. While they still cannot expect to see me wearing pants around them, they seem to have given up on trying to convince us I should never wear pants outside my own house. Again, the 21st century reader may be confused by how this constitute progress. I'm grading on a curve here. And for her credit, I think Mill has taken the mental load to try and fix the relationship. She's been the one texting me, giving news and inviting us to a restaurant, all the emotional labor that used to be mine. Phil is still a piece of work but since his parents now like me, not much he can say or do. Ironically, his culture is now working for me.